Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Xie Mengfang, and I have taught in Penghu for about 10 years. So this Australian experience really helped me to enrich my teaching experience here. So as you can see my topic from the screen, I try to target on how to enhance students' writing ability by integrating the 5 language skills. So the reason for me to choose such topic is that, well, back in Brisbane, we got a chance to observe how Australian teachers, they teach English in class. And I'm amazed how they try hard to put knowledge in book into actual practice. So I think it's really important for us because we are EFL settings. And another reason for me to choose such topic is we have to do the teaching practice in class before the Australian professors. And one of the professors, they asked us to squeeze our textbook, to squeeze every drop out of it. That means, well, we all have textbook. We all got grammar, vocabulary, reading, and dialogue. But have you asked yourself, do you really make good use of your textbook? Some of our teachers, we add some of the additional material to supplement the textbook. But in fact, the textbook itself is a rich language resources. So that is why I try to use only textbook to integrate the 5 language skills. Okay, and the reason why I want to target on the writing ability because, well, it's accessible and it's productive skills. Okay. So this is my teaching activities and procedure. I try to combine, first of all, listening and writing, speaking and writing, reading and writing, and last will be translating and writing. So let's start from the listening and writing. Well, it's easy for you because you go down the listening comprehension check, right? Because listening is receptive skill, while writing is productive. For the common or traditional for the old way to assess listening comprehension, we all ask students to fill in the blank based on what you have heard, or we ask them to listen to a short paragraph or a reading, and ask them to do the listening comprehension afterward. So all they have to do is write down A, B, C, or D. There isn't much to do with their writing skills. So what I have tried in my class is, instead of listening to yes/no questions, I ask lots of WH questions. So in that way, they are kind of forced to or asked to write short sentences or paragraphs instead of A, B, C, or D. Okay, so for you can use that skills in both pre and post listening questions. And I think this particularly work well for shy students because we usually combine speaking with listening, right? After you listen to something, you ask them to come up with something orally right away. But some of the students, they just got blank when you call their names. And they need time, they need a paper to jot down their ideas or translate their ideas into English later. So I think, especially for the shy student, they love this activity. Okay, thank you. Okay, and that is one example which I have did in my class, and it's called the Japanese table manners. So before the listening, I ask students to listen carefully and try to take notes during the listening. So they may jot down the notes about what are the Japanese table manners. And I think it's okay for them to miss 1 point or 2, because it's all about note-taking, how to focus on content words, how to take notes. So this is the skill what I try to combine listening and writing. Okay, and so I will try to break down our reading to paragraphs and ask students to pay attention to topic sentences and keywords, that is the transitional words. Okay, the next section is how to combine speaking with writing. This one troubles me the most because at first I really have no idea because both are productive skills. How can you assess writing with How can you assess speaking with writing? So that is what I have tried in my class. So I will assign related topic for students to jot down the outlines or take notes that is related to the writing skills. And they will, based on their notes and the outlines, they'll do the group discussion or the debate, and that is for the speaking ability. And the next lesson activity will be more like information gap. It's called reporter's interview. So students got a questionnaire in hand, and they'll find a partner and try to get all the answers on the questionnaire. So it's not merely about combining speaking and writing, but you have to combine listening as well. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So I have done this for book 3 reading. It's called Dear Dr. Know-It-All, and you have all talked about that. It's about internet use and parent-kid issue. So based on that reading, I'll ask students to kind of group up, one be the kid and the other be the parent, and they'll find information on the website, or they can do the group discussion. It's help them to do it orally, and later on, based on their note, they'll do the debate. Okay? Let's move on to the third section, combine reading and writing. So I will provide some extra reading, and this is what I think is important. Be sure to be short and topic related, because you don't want to bore students or give students tons of burdens. And after they do the extra reading, they try to come up with their own writing, their composition. And I know some of the teachers, you may say, oh, I'm running out of time, or my students are of low proficiency. They are unable to come up with proper writing. Well, so are my students. So this is what I've tried. Instead of writing a composition, I asked them to kind of draw their pictures and try to use English sentences to describe the pictures. Okay? Oh, this is for the lower level student. They can draw their own pictures, and for a higher level, they're sure to compose the short stories. And let me show you how my student did here. This is for the 7th graders. Okay, you all teach this lesson. It's called the daily routine. You have introduced all the verbal phrases like get up in the morning, brush your teeth, eat breakfast, go to school, go to bed, take a nap. So I don't care about what happened in the reading. I want to know what my students do for the whole day. So they kind of write their, kind of draw the pictures from morning to night, and they kind of use only one simple sentence to describe the picture. And the next one is pretty funny that I want to share. As you can see from the first picture here, well, the teacher is teaching English. It's not me. The student taking cram school classes after school. Okay, so the teacher is teaching on the stage and the students are sleeping. This one is interesting. It's called under 18 prohibited. So I'm kind of curious because all my students, they're under 18. What happened to you after school? So I just read the composition. So I read the sentences she wrote. So here it goes. At night, I go to cram school from 6 to 9:15. When I get home, I have a shower. So that is a shower scene that she created. Pretty creative, right? Yeah, I share it with all my students. They burst out in laughter. Okay, let's move on to the last section, how to combine translating with writing. I think this is fairly important in EFL setting because I want my students not be good at using English only. I want to be good at using both Chinese and English. So for this particular section, I want to help my students to be able to translate from Chinese to English. And it's not easy because it requires mixed abilities. You need to equip them with vocabulary, grammar, and corresponding words. So the whole process is like building a pyramid from bottom to the top. first you need to introduce them with vocabulary, then it is the basic Greeks, and then you glue them with grammatical structure. And the last is our final goal, to combine translating with writing. So for the first section, so in every lesson, it's about 20-ish or 30-ish vocabulary for teacher to introduce in class, right? So I will group students up. They are supposed to look words up in the dictionary or check the internet. And after that, they will share it with the rest of the class. And after we have done that, I ask them to try to combine 10 or more vocabulary in one sentence or in one short paragraph. And let's try one right away. So these are the vocabulary from lesson 9. So these are the 10 vocabulary that I provided to you. First, February, balcony, contest, straight, compete, national, celebrate, win, and prize. You'll know the words, translation, you'll know their nouns, verbs, and adjectives. How can you combine them in one paragraph? And be sure to be creative. And down below are my students' creation. Pretty interesting. Yeah, be funny and creative. So my student wrote, my grandma played the electric guitar on the balcony for 8 straight hours. She will compete in the national contest next February. She won the first prize last year, and she plans to celebrate the winning again this year. Yep. So from this perfect piece here, you know students, they know how to use verbs, nouns correctly. Right? And let's move on to combine grammar and writing. So we at least have 1 or 2 grammatical structure to introduce per lesson. And instead of doing all the textbook exercises, I want them to actually use the grammatical structure into daily use, related to personal experience. For example, we have introduced the adverb of frequency, right? Always, usually, once a week, twice a month. You can ask them to describe their weekly routine. So my student will say, I always go to church on the weekend, or I sometimes play basketball on Wednesday. So it's not just that far away, it's related to themselves. Okay, so the final stage is translating and writing. And in this section, I want to particularly focus on how to translate Chinese into English. Okay, so it's a time for both English teachers to work together. Students can read topic-related articles in Chinese, and later on, they can compose in English. We have talked about the Japanese table manners, right? So you can provide them with a short paragraph or a short reading, show them how different cultures and different countries behave differently on the table. And I'm not asking them to translate all the paragraph into English. They will bore them to death, and it's too difficult to achieve. What I'm going to do is, after they read the Chinese article, okay, so they're going to answer the guided question. Think about the table manners in Taiwan, in your country. Why do people of different cultures behave differently when eating? Why do Indians eat with their hands? Why do Americans eat with knives and forks? Why do we use chopsticks? And how about you? How about your student? Do you behave differently when dining at home and in the restaurant? As you can see, I don't use yes/no questions. I want them to produce more in English. Okay, so for my personal reflection, some of the activities, it requires grouping. And I found that the mixed proficiency level grouping will be more encouraging and efficient. Because some of the lower proficiency students, they may have thoughts and ideas. What they can do is to translate it into English. So that is when the higher level student can jump out and help the lower level student. But since my focus is on writing, writing is fairly personal. So you can do the group discussion first, and later on they can produce their own composition or writing, maybe at home or in private. And also, writing is not easy to achieve. It's a higher level of proficiency that requires so many abilities. So if your students are facing difficulties, maybe you would like to change the topic or lower down the difficulty levels. Okay? And right now, they're not students, they are writers. They may face a writer's block. I would say it's a writer's block because they watch TV all the time. They play the computer games all the time. They don't read. They don't have the input. Therefore, they fail to come up with their own thoughts and ideas. So if in these situations, teachers need to ask more guided questions to guide them to elicit their background information, their background knowledge. And maybe you can share your personal experience with them. And in order to motivate students, you might want to choose some of the topic that they are interested in, like movies, comic books, novels, some famous superstars. And also, after they have produced their own writing, you can kind of put their work in public, like the classroom newspaper. It's a positive feedback, and students will receive peer feedback as well. So for the future, if you are really interested in doing such activity, I would say it's really time consuming, so do not try to incorporate the 5 skills all in one lesson. Pick one per lesson. And it helps to fresh students up and show that we English teachers really want to enhance your writing ability. I do care about writing. And for the difficulty adjustment, which I have mentioned, be sure to based on students' proficiency level and interest. And the last one is pretty controversial because in order to encourage students to write more, to come up with their own creation, I place fluency before accuracy. But for writing skills, you cannot ask someone to understand your writing if you spell it wrong or with the wrong grammatical structure. But for the beginners, I would say let them come up first, and then you correct it later. Okay? So that's for my presentation today. Any questions?
Okay, questions? Again, this is not traditional, right? Because traditionally, teachers don't do writing in junior high school because writing skills is not tested. So I really admire teachers who include writing, which is very important. Okay, so any questions for me? Yes?
I found it very interesting, especially you have listening involved in reading. There are several questions I would like to ask. First of all, just some backgrounds of your students. How many students are there in the classroom? 32. And different classes or 3 classes every week? What do you mean?
I mean 3 classes of 8th graders, so it's about 100 students in total.
I'm sorry. Can all the students finish your I don't know, in time? And how do you deal with the situation like in one class and if those students doesn't really respond or if they can't even draw? And how do you deal with the dilemmas? I know they always have better performance or better result, but the problem I face now in my classroom would be the lower students, and we come here not because we want to show good performance to help us to be more confident in doing more different things, but we also want to know how do we face difficult problems, and how do you face difficult problems to challenge, to teach our students new things. What I mean is that if we have one student that performs well in the classroom, and how do you deal with the other 31 students who doesn't perform that much? And that helps us to keep doing something new. And how do you deal with the situation? That was my first question. And the second one would be, I like your vocabulary teaching. What I do in my classroom would be even a little bit more. I teach my students vocabulary. I make a vocabulary list, which that I write like 5 or at least one sentence in one vocabulary with Chinese translation down below, but I blank all the vocabulary words. So they have to check which one match which vocabulary sentence. And I let each group to find out like 6 vocabulary in 6 different sentences or 12 sentences. And they do it within like 4 minutes. And they would ask one to teach students, to teach all the classroom which vocabulary match which sentence, and that would help all the students to listen and also to read the vocabulary sheet that I made. And that would benefit the vocabulary teaching in the classroom. And I also think that yours have helped me to make further step, because I would probably at the end of the vocabulary teaching class would ask one higher academic performance students to come to the blackboard to write down one sentence with like 5 vocabularies in it. Yeah, and that's a very nice way to ask my students to practice learning vocabulary. But my problem comes to the next. It is really time consuming to teach vocabulary. Especially we teach 32 vocabulary each lesson. And that bores students as well, especially when they get into testing. They don't have to know the sentence structure. The tests have trained them to know only translation between Chinese and English. So that would be my problem. If that is time consuming, how do we solve the problem? And how do every one of us try to look for answers? So that would be my 3 questions.
Well, for your last question here, as I have mentioned, you cannot integrate all 5 language skills in one lesson. So I just picked one individually in one lesson only. Like in this lesson, I try to blend vocabulary and writing, and maybe I won't try that during the next lesson. So if you say it's time consuming, it just occupies maybe 1 class or 2. Right. For me, it's really impossible to do all these activities in one lesson.
Kind of separated in like 5 sessions.
Right. Kind of spread it in different lessons here.
But we got only like 3 classes each week for 1 class, right? Or 4 classes,
right.
Or 4 sessions each week. So if you were to put that into the classroom within the courses, so that would be like, I don't know, 6 classes a week, so that you can.
Like for every activity, it may take 2 classes, I would say. Like for the vocabulary and writing, you cannot do it in 1, right? You at least need 2 for that.
Is it possible to alternate your activities? For this lesson, I'll do vocabulary and writing. For next lesson, I'll do translation and writing. For the other lesson, I'll do listening and writing. So writing is always important. So I will integrate it with another skill depending on the content of the article for the lesson. Okay? I'm especially interested in the students' product of
a grandmother playing electric guitar, right? Right? How do you get that? It's very creative. It's a translation, writing.
I know it's combine vocabulary and writing. So I provide them with the 10 vocabulary I have taught, and they come up with the kind of glue them together in one paragraph.
That was students' example. Right?
Yeah.
So you're saying some students are ready, some are not. When you share one piece of work from the class, that will inspire not just another one, that will probably inspire 10 students. If you share 2 pieces of writing from their classmate, that will inspire more. Because if they see that their classmate can do it, this is from my personal experience. If they see their classmate can do it, they say, oh, we can do it that way too. Next time when you ask me to do this, I'll, think in that direction. So creativity and ideas and language, they just inspire each other. It's better than us coming up with a sample article and say, memorize this. Right? So really they learn from each other. They look up to each other and they inspire each other. Yeah. So don't worry, we can't wait for everybody to get ready at the same time and to reach where we want them to go at the same time, but gradually they'll get there.
They learn from each other.
Right, but that's the beauty of this project and the previous project as well. Okay, any other questions? We still have a few more minutes. Yes.
I also inspired by what you have done very much. And I have 2 questions. When it comes to writing, we know that teachers' feedback is very important. And you mentioned that you have 32 students in one class. And how can you correct or reviewing what they have written in just like 1 week?
Right, that is the beauty of peer feedback.
Peer feedback? So you divided them into groups and then
yeah, they evaluate each other's pieces first and I'll do the second. It's kind of like refining their final product.
Okay, that's mine. And that happens to my second question. You mentioned that you do a lot of group work, right? But in my experience, those students who have really low proficiency, what they're learning class is how to draw and not how to speak in English or write in English. So that's my problems when I ran into the group discussion or group work. How do you solve those problems?
You mean those?
How do you teach those students with lower proficiency? Because we know that what they can do is to draw or to talk in Chinese instead of English. And at the end of the session, I think they learn nothing about English. That's my opinion and my experience. Thank you.
Right, as I mentioned, I want students to learn from each other. So, as I mentioned, the mixed proficiency level really work well in my class. Those higher level students, they will stand up to teach those of lower level students. And well, the lower level student, if you think they're not learning, they can copy from others' work as well. And I think during the copying process, they're learning something as well, I believe. Yeah.
I'll share my example quickly in 1 minute. It's a long story. I did a project in high school 20 years ago. Well, maybe not that long ago. Anyway, I went to a junior high school. I told students that I wanted to help them read and write. And one day, I always gave the